Hello, 10%ers, and welcome to the Occupy Pro Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Smiley, and every week I'm going to look at the amazing things that wrestlers, promotions, and fans are doing in this crazy world we call professional wrestling. This is the first episode of Occupy Pro Wrestling, a pilot of sorts, and a taste of what this show is all about. Since I started the Occupy Pro Wrestling website back in 2012, I've had the opportunity to make some great friends in wrestling and to partner up with some great people that are doing some wonderful stuff. In future episodes, I'm going to use this time to talk about the latest news from them. But for this episode, I thought it'd be appropriate to give you a little bit of introduction to who they are and what they're doing. 80s Mania Wrestling is a wrestling RPG app for iOS and Android that takes you back to the glory days of pro wrestling. You get to be the promoter, deciding how to best book a Fed in the 80s and use some interesting characters to make your Fed a success. I've had a lot of fun playing this game, trying to make double champions out of the likes of Starboy and the Piranha as much as possible. Be sure to check all this out at 80smaniawrestling.com and be on the lookout for their new card game through Filsinger Games. The only thing better than a scary movie is a scary movie about women wrestling for a shot at a reality TV show. That's right, I'm talking about the Boom Boom Girls of Wrestling. I got to check this film out last summer and it was a lot of fun. Going to give a review of it next week, but if you want to check it out for yourself, go to theboomboomgirls.com to find out more. Chances are you know him as the Hot Tub Review Guy, but Deshaun's 2 cents is so much more than that. Check out his YouTube channel for some great interviews with wrestlers in the SoCal scene and beyond, and some great reviews of past shows both in and out of the hot tub. Here's a little clip to give you an idea of what Sean does.
Let's start with C4. I did catch up on that. I'm gonna buy a lot of C4. I promise you guys. But how is wrestling C4 menu?
C4 wrestling
run there.
C4 wrestling is actually my hometown, so it's like my home federation. It's been my home federation for 8 years, especially in the last 3 years when I couldn't enter America. So it's been really my home. I'm very proud of what they've come through. Like we started with 80 people around a 6-sided shady ring, and now we're like in a 400 packed building.
That place is packed, people. It's so packed.
There are 2 places in Canada I recommend C4 Wrestling and Smash Wrestling, and both places are essentially Canada's version of PWG.
The Indie Corner is a great site run by my buddy Stu, featuring interviews, articles, and more covering the world of indie wrestling in the United Kingdom and beyond. Be sure to check them out at theindiecorner.com. On the MFX podcast, my friends Duckman and Sir Ian Trumps talk about a variety of subjects, including wrestling, politics, sports, and much more with an emphasis on comedy. Featuring a great weekly feature called Try Hard Ruler of the Week, MFX has loads of fun for everyone, so be sure to check them out at mfxpodcast.com. Here's a clip to give you a little idea of what these guys are all about.
Your fart is a son-in-law, but your heart is a real son. I love you, Paul Powell.
Hey, you gotta start calling yourself Shane.
No, Shame.
Yeah,
I want you to call yourself Shame.
I want you to call yourself Shame O'Mac.
Shame McMahon.
Yeah.
I don't love you. I've never loved you. No, I love you.
Instead of the Californian Raisins, I want you to have a band called the Bean Street Posse.
I love you, Shame.
I love you, Shame.
You're the son I never wanted.
Single Leg Takedown features articles, editorials, reviews, a predictions league, and more, with plenty of content coming in all the time. Be sure to check them out at sltdwrestling.com. WrestleView has been my go-to resource for wrestling news, recaps, and reviews since I first really got into wrestling around 2002. I've had the honor of writing recaps and reviews for SmackDown for the site since October, and I greatly appreciate the work Adam and the crew put into it. Be sure to check them out at WrestleView.com. The Wrestling Mayhem Show has been talking about WWE, TNA, and much more for 10 years and still going strong. Sorgatron and the Mayhem crew make it a habit to talk shop about the goings-on in professional wrestling, featuring such segments as The Big Question and a thought experiment in progress called Mayhem Mania. WMS began a spin-off show a couple years ago called the Indie Mayhem Show to focus in on indie wrestling discussion and interviews with big names and upcoming stars. You can check all that out and much more at WrestlingMayhemShow.com. Here are some clips from some of the shows that the Wrestling Mayhem crew do on a weekly basis.
So let's get into the big question with our boy, the Riz, putting down the video games for a moment so he can tell us what the big question is.
My question to you guys is, what was one of your memories or matches that you can recall was one of the bloodiest matches you've seen?
A barbed wire match that Terry Funk and Sabu had, and it's kind of extra legendary because if you watch the old ECW television show, they would run the basically the promo to order the VHS tape of this match every single episode, and it would just be the Phantom of the Opera song and Sabu being thrown into the barbed wire in slow motion.
What do you think about the state of women's wrestling when you're coming into it? Were you concerned about kind of finding spots to work, or what were kind of your thoughts at that point?
Coming into the business, I was really concerned. I was like, well, how am I ever going to get better if I don't ever get to wrestle? So eventually it came up to the point where I was like, am I going to stay here at OPW, or am I going to go somewhere else and try to train somewhere else? And that's when me and Dylan made the decision to move to Pittsburgh, which is where I'm from.
Now that I've told you about my friends, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I've been a fan of wrestling since around late 2000. I might have seen little bits and pieces of it before then, but I watched my first pay-per-view in December of that year with some friends as we enjoyed the 6-man Hell in a Cell main event of Armageddon. From there I got to enjoy Royal Rumble 2001 featuring my favorite comedian of all time, Drew Carey, being scared out of his wits by Kane, and WrestleMania X7 featuring the shocking heel turn and what many consider to be the end of the Attitude Era by Stone Cold Steve Austin. Unlike many fans who'd watched this stuff longer than I had, I actually enjoyed the invasion angle at face value. I had no idea that the WCW and ECW guys were being given the short end of that feud. I only saw some great matches and promos being done by everyone involved. Ever since, I've been fascinated by the stories pro wrestling can tell in and out of the ring. Fast forward the tape to 2008, when I picked up a copy of PWG Sells Out Volume 1 from Best Buy of all places, after seeing the likes of CM Punk, AJ Styles, and Samoa Joe on the front cover. This was my first taste of indie wrestling, and I've had the chance to see some great stuff from my local promotion over the years, as well as some action from ROH, CHIKARA, and more. In addition to wrestling, I'm a big fan of just about anything related to technology. I was raised on Macs early on, but love working with all sorts of gadgets. I'm a WordPress enthusiast, and I graduated in 2013 with a bachelor's in graphic design. I love listening to podcasts, which is why I like talking about the great ones I get a chance to listen to. From WMS and MFX to Colt Cabana's Art of Wrestling and the Steve Austin podcast, I am generally drawn to anything that tells great stories. As you can tell, that's a big theme in my love for wrestling and everything else. Stories. We all have stories, and I want to get to hear yours. That's why one of the things I'm planning for future episodes is to interview people. I've made quite a few friends over the years and met some great people through my love for wrestling. Some are fellow fans, others are involved in the business in some way, and I want to open that door to anyone that wants to talk about their love for pro wrestling. There are many things to love about pro wrestling, from the shows that happen within a few miles of your home, to the big sold-out events in stadiums all over the world. There's also a lot of wrestling-related media, and every week I'm going to talk about some of the great stuff you can find out there. This week I'm kicking things off by talking about a very interesting podcast that just started up that tells the unique stories you can only find in pro wrestling. Colt Cabana, the podcast pioneer of pro wrestling, takes a look at amazing, heartbreaking, and generally interesting stories from the business. As of this recording, there are 3 episodes available on HAL Premium. A Giant Expectation, Black and White, and Handpicked, the latter of which is offered as a preview of the series via Cabana's Art of Wrestling podcast. A Giant Expectation is a brief look at the career of the man that many old-school WWF fans know as Giant Gonzalez. Black and White takes a look at the story of Sputnik Monroe, whose support of desegregation in the 1950s Memphis helped pave the way for professional sports as a whole. And in Handpicked, what happens when the obvious choice for the guy doesn't pan out quite the way you expect? This story on Tom McGee talks about that very scenario. This is a very cool concept for a podcast, because telling stories like the 3 featured here is great, not only for hardcore fans to learn more about new topics and people, but as a tool to introduce pro wrestling to casual fans or even those not familiar with the art of wrestling. pun intended. In addition to hearing some great stories, Colt Cabana has some excellent conversations with guys like Rob Naylor, David Bixen's band, and Dave Meltzer to discuss the stories and people involved. I highly recommend checking this series out, and if you get a chance, be sure to check out all the great shows available on Howl. Colt Cabana has an audio documentary on the gathering of the Juggalos that I'll be checking out in the near future. And I think that's what I love most about the podcast that Colt Cabana does, are the opportunities to hear these stories. Because stories is very much something that I'm into when it comes to pro wrestling. Whether it's the stories of the classic feuds over the years, the stories that can be told in the ring, or even the stories that we share with each other as wrestling fans. So when I started coming up with ideas for this podcast, I knew that the centerpiece would have to be these kinds of conversations, whether it's with fans, possibly with wrestlers, promoters, etc., just to kind of hear what they love about wrestling and why. This week I had the chance to speak with a good friend of mine that I met through wrestling. We first met around 2013 through our mutual love for CHIKARA Pro, and as many of you might remember, 2013 was a very chaotic year for the company. This chaos presented a very unique opportunity for my friend, who founded the CHIKARA in 15 Minutes podcast and later on Chattin With The CHIKARMY. Many of you know her formerly as CHIKARA's intrepid reporter, but she is known quite simply as Babs. Hello everyone, this is Alex Smiley. I'm here with my good buddy Babs. Babs, it's great to be talking to you again. I remember the last time we had a conversation on Skype was when you were chatting with the CHIKARMY, so it's actually kind of nice to have the roles reversed a little bit here. How are you doing, Babs?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me on. It is a little bit of role reversal, so this is kind of interesting. So, and I'm definitely was looking forward to this, and I'm really glad that you asked me to do it. So thank you, Alex, for having me on.
So first question I have is, what got you into wrestling? Whether that's like your first memory of watching wrestling or just in general.
My first memory is, and I've talked a little bit about it before, is definitely what got me linked was SummerSlam 1992. The main event was the British Bulldogs versus Bret the Hitman Hart for the Intercontinental Championship. And I think what really attracted me to it, or really got me hooked, was one, the spectacle of it. I mean, that was like an 80,000 seat arena in Wembley Stadium. So the pageantry was kind of nice, the production. But I think too was the story. The storytelling that was going on. Almost every match had some really great storytelling going on, but that Intercontinental Championship match, you know, the tension between the brother-in-laws, you know, Diana was there, the British Bulldog's wife was there. So there was a lot of family trauma and tension. It just had a really great story, and it was very much drew you in and captivated you. So you had this really great match, it was a really good match between these two. And what was great about that was there was also the story between the power of the British Bulldog versus the technical skill of the Hitman, who was really starting to rise to prominence and make his way toward the championship. You know, and so it was just a great story, a lot of emotion. And so was that emotion too. It just kind of stuck with me, and kind of grabbed my interest.
Nice. It's funny you mentioned storytelling, because I know you and I kind of share the same love of storytelling within wrestling. So, and I guess that kind of leads me to the next question, kind of regarding your writing, your blogs and what have you. Give us an idea of what kind of got you writing about wrestling and anything else in general.
Wow, writing about wrestling. You know, I was always interested in writing, and I was always doing it. I did always consider myself a better nonfiction writer than a fiction writer. Although my fiction writing skills have gotten much better over the years. And I've read about wrestling before. Like when I was in school, we had to write. I was in 11th grade, and we were studying Chaucer. And in the Canterbury Tales, he does character sketches. And I did a whole set of them for wrestlers, so various wrestlers. And it was like a little book. And I think I have it still, actually, set away. So I made like a little book, and I wrote all these character sketches that were based on all these wrestlers. So I know, a little silly, but it was a lot of fun. It was really neat to do. And it was really, and I got an A on it. So obviously the teacher liked it a lot too. So wrestling kind of has played into different things. And when I went to college, I think I even wrote a paper about wrestling, about the Attitude Era, actually, for a communications class. But as far as writing about wrestling itself, I think I was really inspired by CHIKARA and some of the storytelling things I was seeing. and the character development and different things. So I started writing about things I found were interesting. I studied psychology and sociology in school. It's kind of like a interest, kind of like a second interest, not like for a degree or anything. So, I just kind of started thinking about things and reading and looking at them and started writing it. So anything I was inspired by. So that's kind of how I started writing about like CHIKARA and things like that and writing about wrestling.
Nice. Speaking of CHIKARA, so when did you first start getting into because we had this conversation before, but like how did you find out about CHIKARA then and like getting involved with like writing about that?
Actually back in 2009, a friend of mine who had been watching indie wrestling for years was a fan of CHIKARA, and he actually was from Connecticut, and they were going to be down here for Young Lions Cup Night 3 in 2009, and he had finally convinced me to come see CHIKARA because he kind of wanted me to see it before, and it just never worked out, and he wasn't in the area and whatever, so it just happened to be a great thing where he's like, oh, well, come, we'll hang out, I think you're really going to like this. He didn't tell me anything else about it, though. Mm-hmm. So I had no idea what I was walking into. And I will admit to myself being really disappointed in myself because I wish I would have known more. Because I think I would have appreciated what I saw. Because it was night 3 of the Young Lions Cup. So there was stuff that happened, like, for example, like the Sea Monsters broke up. Mm-hmm. And I feel like when I rewatched it on DVD, I'm like, man, I wish I really appreciated that more in person, especially with Hydra being involved. I just really wish I would have appreciated that more. Also too, the Golden Dream Triangle Trios match was like amazing. I feel like, so I kind of wish I had more of a better perspective. I wish he would have told me something. Mm-hmm. And then after that, he went away. He actually moved away. So he couldn't go to any more shows with me, but I did continue to go to shows. And it took me probably about a year and a half until I felt comfortable, actually, that I really understood what was going on and understood the characters and everything that was happening, where I felt like I had a really good background. So it took me about a year and a half. So I really understood, like new fans and stuff. Like when I was doing the podcast and things, I understood kind of what they felt in terms of being overwhelmed and not sure where to start and what was going on and things like that. So yeah, it took me about a year and a half, which is hilarious. But then, like I said, I really started getting inspired. And as I learned more and I had more of a backstory and a background, and I could talk and I felt like I could talk comfortably about storylines and things, is when I started seeing the deeper side of it. I think with CHIKARA, you can watch it as deep or as shallow as you want to, as the type of wrestling fan you are, which is one of the great things about it. And I tend to go from deep. It's just me. I tend to look for those sort of things. So it gave me a lot to write about, a lot to be inspired by. So that's kind of how I started writing about it. And some of the pieces I wrote were really, really very psychologically based.
Yeah.
I think I wrote about Archibald Peck's character evolution, looking at it through the lens of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
Which I still believe it was actually completely wonderfully brilliant. Yeah. Not to toot my own horn a little bit, in terms of, but it really was amazing what he was doing, what Archibald Peck was doing, and the way his character developed was absolutely amazing. I talked a little bit about Jigsaw and self-image, because he kind of got really weird. There was a few blogs and things where he was talking about how like people viewed him and based on his relationship with Quack, and then versus how he viewed himself and how other people were viewing him. So it was kind of interesting. And then I wrote a lot about Tim Donst and Jakob Hammermeyer and what they were doing and their relationship at the time, which was very, very abusive. And literally how very much it was true to life. That's kind of how abuse works and whatnot. And I never finished it. There was really going to be one more. And I really one day want to sit down and write it. I was going to write about the ending of it, where Donst gets kind of left behind and he leaves. And I was going to write about the ending of that line, but also too what happened to Jakob Hammermeyer and what he's become because of that.
Yeah.
And the person he's turned into. So I wanted to do that. Maybe I'll finish it. I don't know. But I was really proud of that series and the way that it came out. I was very happy with it. So that was kind of it. Like, again, I just wrote what I was inspired about and what I saw and was interesting to me. And it was very inspiring. There was a lot to be inspired by. So it was really great. So I really enjoyed doing that.
Yeah, I remember reading quite a few of those, especially as you kind of started diving more into like the kind of some of the angles going around during the shutdown angle. Those were a lot of fun. I actually just finished rereading Who Watches the I think it was CHIKARA Who Watches the Watchmen or something like that.
Yeah,
and that was actually it was, very interesting theories and very good to kind of really think about, kind of dive into what was going on.
Yeah, everyone had a theory about what was going on at the time. And so that was my theory. And actually, my theory ended up making it into that big document. I never got credited. I was so mad. So mad. And I think I ended up being right, actually. And I think my logic was weird and off, but I actually ended up being right.
Yeah, which
was terrible because I said it was quack, and I think I ended up being right. And I was like, wait, I think I'm right. Hold on a minute. And I had no idea. I was not part of CHIKARA at the time, so I was not privy to anything. So everything that I wrote was just what I saw based on storylines and things like that, my opinions, and what I had seen all over social media and things like that. So I was not part of CHIKARA at the time at all. Yeah. I was not officially part of CHIKARA during season 13. Not officially at all.
Yeah.
A lot of people thought I was, but I wasn't.
Yeah, it still feels weird to call it season 13 because it's just I'm kind of glad that they did kind of put that label on it, because it was very hard to figure out what else to call it. We all just called it the shutdown angle. We still call it the shutdown angle, but they officially call it season 13. Yeah. Which is funny because on the CHIKARA Pro events page, there's literally just the movie Ashes of CHIKARA.
Well, that was what was on there. That was what was going on at the time. Yeah. I mean, a lot of those things were happening, so yeah, that was pretty much it. Yeah. There was a lot going on, though. There were a lot of individual stories, and what makes me sad is that I didn't get those. Some of those didn't get, I think, more attention than they did. Yeah. Because I thought there were really great stories in there, and there were some nice cameos too in that movie that I was really excited about. Really, Crossbones. That was so exciting. And then the credits, Shane Hawk was credited. That was really exciting for me. I love Shane Hawk. I'm a big fan of Shane Hawk, so it was really exciting. But I really liked the shutdown angle. I know not a lot of people do, but I think it was a really interesting and very gutsy experiment. Probably the most gutsy experiment that's ever been in pro wrestling. So it was a little crazy to believe that I was even part of that, to be honest with you. And I think it told us a lot. And I feel like no one has sat down, and maybe that's something I'll do. I'll sit down and really look at it and discuss how it has, or the results that came out of it and the things that came out of it. Mm-hmm. And in terms of talking about storytelling, also interactions with fans, what we learned about wrestling fans and the kind of things they like, or at least CHIKARA fans, at least CHIKARMY. Yeah. And what kinds of things could possibly be utilized on a larger scale in the future. So I feel like somebody needs to sit down and really analyze that period and talk about what has come out of that. I would really love to see something like that. So maybe I'll write it. I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be a fun read, I'd say. It's like you said, one of the really interesting things about the shutdown angle was kind of the level of fan interaction. CHIKARA, we know, is typically, they've been very much about kind of listening to the fans and kind of responding. But the shutdown angle kind of led us to some very interesting fan interactions, and of course this is around the time of kind of the introduction of CHIKARA in 15 and everything that kind of came out of that. Yep. And I've had a couple people when I took over a couple months ago, I had people kind of asking me what started CHIKARA in 15. So it'd be actually nice to kind of hear from you basically what started CHIKARA in 15.
CHIKARA in 15 was sort of the perfect storm of things coming together. At the time, I thought about podcasting before. And actually my brother Bill had actually been, getting into it. And he says to me, you should do it. You have a nice voice for it. With your writing, you should podcast. And I said to him, well, he said, well, you should do wrestling. And I said, well, for me to do a podcast, I don't want it to sound like everybody else's. There's a lot of wrestling podcasts out there. What can I do that's different? And I decided that if I was going to do a podcast, it was going to have certain kinds of criteria. Okay, so one, it was going to be different from everything out there. It was going to be unique. Two, it was going to serve a purpose. There was going to be a point to having it, a point to doing it. It was going to actually do something. And then three, I wanted it to be something that was not going to be too long or too short. That was going to be something that the fans could listen to, but not feel like, oh, really? You're still talking? But was going to engage them in some way. So I really wanted these sort of things. So I had all these criteria, and I just couldn't come up with an idea. And I now during this time period, we had all been given I Am CHIKARA shirts. And a fun fact, I still have mine. It's put away. I still have it. And I think I'll always have it. And then, I was wearing it though. Legitimately wearing it. So I would go to Ring of Honor and wear it. I would go to CZW and I would wear it. So any of the wrestling that was around me, I would wear the shirts. And people would see me and they would ask me, well, they'd come up, because I generally look approachable. They would come up and they'd say, well, what's going on with CHIKARA? I feel like I was wearing a button that says, ask me about CHIKARA. And so, excuse me. So they would come up and ask me, and so I'd be like, oh, well, this is going on, and there's this rally going on, and this, that, and a third. And they would ask me if I thought it was really shut down, and all kinds of questions. So, people were definitely interested in what was going on. Regardless of what they might have felt about, they were interested. People were paying attention. So, at some point, I had been driving home, and I used to listen to, because I would drive on the highways, I would listen to KYW for the traffic and things. And now, when I was younger, I had also taken their news studies program, where they taught you how to write news, basically, for radio, when I was younger. And so I was listening to it, and they had a slogan, and they still use it occasionally. I think they've upped it and they've done something different, but they used it. It was, give us, 22 minutes and we'll give you the world. And so I'm listening to this and I'm thinking to myself, people are looking for CHIKARA news, right? No one's doing anything. There was no media at all. And I don't even think Kevin Ford was even doing Viva CHIKARA at the time. There was nothing. And I thought, they want the news. I was like, I don't think there are any news radio wrestling podcasts. Especially ones that are based on KYW, which is the oldest news radio station in the country. Yeah. And I thought to myself, I can take this and I can adapt this and I can do something with this. And then I got inspired by it. And so I took from KYW, give us 22 minutes, we'll give you the world. Give me 15 minutes and I will give you CHIKARA. That's where it came from. I directly took it from there. I was definitely inspired by KYW. And actually, at one point, I was even thinking about having the ticker tape noise that they're known for in the background. But I decided to axe that because I thought it would be a little distracting. But I was really inspired by that. So I thought, okay, this is what it needs. CHIKARA doesn't have any media. There is nothing tying everything together. So let me do a show that takes all these questions that I'm getting and puts them out in 15 minutes. Okay, these are the updates. This is social media. This is Facebook. This is this. This is that. This is what's going on. This is what's happening next. And then I also did the features, which gave some background, context for newer fans and things. So it was basically a sort of substitute for the CHIKARA media because there wasn't any. And it had a distinct thing and it was useful. It had a distinct voice. It was unique. It's different. And at that time, I really believed it was necessary and people really needed it. And it was something I could contribute, positively, that would really add to something I loved and believed in. So that's how it was born. So I bought myself a little headset microphone used for gaming. And without really knowing how to do it, I just started doing it. I just started recording and I learned as I went along, and doing those things. And it became fairly popular and I was always really flattered that people listened to it and really liked it and, loved it and were fans of it. I was really, really very, very touched. I felt bad because as I got more involved in CHIKARA, I had less and less time to do it. But I did enjoy doing it, whenever I did. And, after I stopped doing it and after I left CHIKARA, I was done with CHIKARA. I was really glad that you had actually contacted me to bring it back. I was really, really flattered. That's something I made, people wanted to continue and it mattered to somebody. And so to me, it was really completely kind of flattering and, shocking, really, that this mattered. So, I have to thank you for that very, very much. And you're doing a great job carrying that legacy. But again, it was something I did because it was needed. Yeah. Because I cared about CHIKARA and I cared about the fans too. And I wanted them to be able to keep in touch with it, and feel like they were a part of it and they could follow along easily and really, didn't have to take them a year and a half to figure out what was going on. Yeah. That someone could do that for them. So, that was really why it started. It was really again, to help kind of, tell the story of season 13. Yeah. Keep it all together.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you. At the time, it was definitely needed. Cause I remember especially as someone who didn't live in the Philadelphia area or had a way to get out that way, mm-hmm. There was so very little for me to really get involved with, mm-hmm. that it came down to listening to the podcast that you did, and then
Mm-hmm.
let's see. Oh, and then like we hit, again going back to that bit of fan interaction, even interaction between fans at the time, which kind of led to two things. And it's funny to kind of bring this up now because I realized I forgot to bring it up when we talked on Chattin With The CHIKARMY, the online rallies that we did, because they had done the rallies at like the art museum and stuff like that. So I remember you and I remember because I remember being the one to bring it up, but it was you who ended up actually hosting them. The online rallies on on those Google Hangouts, those were fun. And then kind of, would you say that those kind of led to the Chattin With The CHIKARMY podcast?
Actually, no.
Okay.
The Chattin With CHIKARMY was an idea that was presented to me by someone else. And I do want to talk about that, but I do want to talk about the online rallies and things.
Yeah.
And something that was always really important to me in relation to CHIKARA was the CHIKARMY, and making sure that people felt included. I was very much believing in the philosophy of wrestling being for everyone. I believe wrestling is for everyone. I think it can be inclusive. So getting the CHIKARMY involved was always one of my priorities. I was also like that at shows. Anytime we had any, members of CHIKARMY who were handicapped or anything who were there at the shows, I was always very, very vigilant in making sure they were accommodated. Simply because having a nephew with special needs and understanding how difficult it can be to get out and see wrestling, and and I feel like everyone should be able to enjoy it. So I was always very much make sure that they could enjoy it and they felt comfortable in that situation and able to enjoy it. It's always something that was very important to me, and that's part of the reason why I think I did a lot of those things, or I was really championing those things. Like for example, championing the online rallies, because I wanted people, regardless of where they were, to feel like they were a part of it.
Yeah.
Just as much as us who were here in Philadelphia felt a part of it, because I believed they were. So I definitely championed those, and they were fun. They were fun, and there was never, I don't know if there was ever a time in wrestling history where fans, maybe ECW, but where fans really sort of got to really become really good friends. You know what I mean? And got to be very close and got to really know each other. And that sort of, even outside of wrestling, because a lot of stuff was outside of like a wrestling show. There wasn't a wrestling show. Really, other than wrestling is fun, wrestling is companies, but outside of in terms of CHIKARA, outside of a wrestling show. So it kind of fostered that. And we all became friends, and, it was really great. I saw some people I hadn't seen in a while at National Pro Wrestling Day, and things like that. So it was kind of nice. It's like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you forever, like old friends, But like I said, I felt that was really important to foster, and that people felt included. So that was really important to me, and it still remains important to me. I think those are things that definitely, fan inclusion, I think, is very important. So again, I did those things because I believed in them, and I was really thrilled to do them, and I was really thrilled how they came out. And that was the theory behind recording and broadcasting things. The FDR rally was my idea to broadcast it.
Yeah, I remember that.
That was not something like CHIKARA, and no one had come to me and said, Babs, I'd like to do this. I was like, hey, I contacted them. I contacted Icarus on 101. I was like, hey, I have this idea. That poor man. I have this idea. I would always be like, I have an idea. Listen, we could try to do this. And it wasn't always perfect because, again, I was just learning how to do these things myself. I mean, I'm a really great ideas person. But sometimes when it comes to things like that, it's just the follow through is not necessarily something I'm used to doing or whatever. So I'd never done something like that before.
Yeah.
And so, doing that, I got a little better and more confident with recording, as it went on. I think the scavenger hunt ended up being sort of hilarious, even with the technical difficulties and the phone charger issue. And I think it ended up being really cool though. And what was great was I was able to get it back just for the end. It ended up really being, the timing turned out perfect. So that worked out really well. And despite the issues, I was actually really proud of how that came out. And I was glad because people could follow along. You know what I mean? More so than if they were just, getting it from Twitter or other places. And I loved how we all kind of came together, and we had a meeting before that, the night before, to discuss things. We had a planning meeting. It was really crazy, but it was a lot of fun. And I think everyone enjoyed that. And it worked out really well because we ended up having people at home who couldn't be there, who were sort of like our question people and research people. So we had contacts that we could ask questions of. When we were there, people were working on clues and things. So it was a really cool way to get And those people would take the information they were getting and go to like 101 and like share what was happening with people. So it was really cool that like those people, even though they weren't there, I remember Rave being really big into it. And she was so great doing that. It was so great to have people who couldn't be there who were involved, really involved, and sharing that. So that was like wonderful to me. I really loved that, about it. And then we ended up doing, recording. We also ended up doing the, Ashes, red carpet.
Yeah.
So the ending got a little cut off, but I was really proud with how that turned out. I think I hit almost every like red carpet trope that existed somehow. It wasn't planned. It was all improv. Yeah. And so that was a really amazing experience to do, as well. And I love doing that. It was a lot of fun. It was fun to dress up, in the vintage sort of look, and, do this red carpet, and interview people. I think there is a GIF set of me and Drew Gulak somewhere from that, which I feel like will always be like in my heart as one of the awesomest things. That was great. And I remember tormenting Chuck Taylor at some point. Nothing new there really, but that was fun. And so it was just a great event, and that was really cool to see something like that on a big screen. Just absolutely amazing. So that was a lot of fun. I was really proud of how that turned out too. I think that added something, fun to it, to the event. So that was a lot of fun to do. So like I said, I enjoyed that period. There was a lot of good creative stuff happening, and it was really exciting to be a part of some of those things. And so it was great.
Yeah, I remember. I still remember watching what was it, the FDR and some of the scavenger hunt. Those are definitely a lot. Those were a lot of fun to kind of watch and get involved with. I remember kind of keeping close eye on the 101 forums the day of the scavenger hunt. I still remember the fact that like, what was it, like a few days before news kind of broke out on one of the dirt sheets, as they like to call it, about the fact that they wrote like it kind of got out that there would be a scavenger hunt. And it was kind of a funny reaction from people, because some people were like, "What?" I think most of the people that responded to it were kind of glad that we'd gotten some kind of idea of what to expect.
Yeah,
because it was like, because before then we were like, we have no idea what's going on.
Right. It was nice. It made it a little easier for the planning committee.
Yeah.
That was a little easier, but no, it was fun. It was fun to expect that, and it was a crazy event, and it was a lot of fun. I thought it was something that was very just outside the box, innovative.
Yeah.
Which I think again is one of the great things that came out of that period. Was there was a lot of out of the box thinking, in terms of professional wrestling and what wrestling could include. I mean, essentially, Icarus was giving promos. That's what the rallies were, essentially. I mean, they were kind of like promos, with also this fan inclusion, and there was some mystery and things like that. So, it was very, very, like I said, very innovative, outside the box kind of thinking, that I thought was really fascinating.
Yeah. So yeah, like you said, talking with the fans and kind of getting that sense of, kind of where everyone's coming from. So I do want to go ahead and touch then on Chattin With The CHIKARMY.
Okay.
Kind of the origins of that.
Okay. The idea was actually brought to me by someone who was on the show. I interviewed Todd Herschel from Phil Singer Games, and I think he's like tournament on 101 maybe still. He's tournament master on the 101 forum. I remember that now because I think that's his handle. I think that's actually his handle on the Phil Zinger forums as well. So that's where the connection comes from there. So yeah. So actually, he had brought the suggestion to me, and I thought it was a really good one. But I couldn't quite make it work then. And actually, I think about the time that it come up, it was about the time that I had broken my wrist. And the damage to my wrist was so extensive, and I was doing so much, and I couldn't do it. It was just too much. But later on, a few months later, once things were a little better, I was able to implement it. And I will say, I think I've done many things in CHIKARA that I'm very proud of. And by far, Chattin With The CHIKARMY was probably the thing I was proudest of. Because I felt like what we were doing with that, and what I wanted to do with that, and I get a little emotional about it, was that I wanted the fans to feel like they mattered, because I think they do. I wanted them to have a voice still, even though season 13 was over, and the fan interaction and that sort of very close up sense, wasn't necessary or wasn't part of what was going on. I wanted them to still feel like they had a voice and they still mattered and they're still a part of CHIKARA very much, because they are. And I wanted it to be for people who can go, and I interviewed people who go to shows and are in the area, but I also interviewed people who weren't there, because I wanted those people to feel involved and feel like their voices mattered. And, you didn't have to be at a show to feel like, you were part of CHIKARA. And like I said, it was probably the thing maybe I'm most proud of. Because I think, it was just very different. You don't see wrestling companies doing that, which I think is sad. I think Chatting with CHIKARMY is something that definitely needs to exist in CHIKARA. And I'm very glad to see that's coming back as well. I just feel like, again, indie wrestling companies aren't doing this. They're not going to their fans and they're not, saying, hey, let's talk about CHIKARA. Let's do this. And here's a voice, and here you have a voice and this matters and you matter. And I think that's really amazing to me. So I was very proud of it.
Yeah. So kind of moving on from that. So you mentioned before that, like, at the time that you'd started CHIKARA in 15 and all that you hadn't really been a part of CHIKARA. Do you want to talk at all about kind of your time being with CHIKARA beyond the podcast, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I was not part of CHIKARA during that time. So a lot of people thought I was not. So let's set that straight right there. It just happens that I had really, really good sense of timing, right place, right time kind of thing. And I think too, I really believed in CHIKARA. So I know like some of my writing had inspired people and things like that. And I meant everything I said because I believe in it. I believed in it. So after the FDR rally, which I had recorded, I had found that afterwards, I could not stop thinking about it. And I could not stop thinking about, there was this sort of sense of like rightness or like joy, happiness, I don't know, in being involved in a small way. And I just I was just like, this is amazing. It was just absolutely incredible. It's really hard to explain how that feels, to be a part of it. And, it was just like, I want to do this. I want to do this, and it was just like, wait. And for the first time, I'd always kind of wanted to be part of wrestling. Like my high school yearbook, it literally says my life goal is to be a wrestling commentator. That's what it says in my high school yearbook. And when I originally went to college, I went for radio, television, and film. And the goal being that I was actually going to go into radio, which is probably why CHIKARA 15 worked out so well. But in the podcasting thing, my real thought was I was going to get the training and become a commentator, and that I could fall back on radio, if it didn't work out. And I'll tell you, I didn't get a lot of support then at the time. And, I had things going on and I didn't believe I could do it. So I kind of thought it was one of those impossible dreams that I would kind of put to the side, and just get on with the business of living. And, I was married and everything, and my ex-husband did not like wrestling. And so I didn't watch for a while, and then I got back into it and became a fan. And then, like I said, the point of doing the recording FDR was not to become involved in CHIKARA. I actually wasn't expecting that to happen. But like I said, when it happened, I just felt like, oh my God, I need to do this. And I thought, oh my God, for the first time, I thought, wait, I can do this. And that's a pretty amazing thing to feel. So then, I had talked to some people. So I asked what their advice was and whatnot. And then I would say on November 7th, I emailed Quack and I told him that I wanted to be a part of CHIKARA and I wanted to join out as part of Wrestle Factory. And I wanted to be involved. And I asked him if I could. And then he said yes. And I didn't start right away anyway. But I had started helping him and things like that, but I wasn't involved in anything with season 13. But the next year I started getting more and more involved. So that was pretty much it. So I consider like the 7th, 11th, November 7th to sort of be my wrestling anniversary, every year. Cause that was like the thing that changed everything, for me. So that's kind of how I got involved. It was just getting that bite. And like I said, the absolute, talking about what Quack had said in that WWE.com interview about the net product of wrestling is joy. I'm paraphrasing. It's not exactly what he said, but that was the net product of it is joy. That was joyful for me to be involved. And I've always taken great joy in being involved. As a matter of fact, I take more joy in being involved in helping make wrestling happen than I do, especially CHIKARA, than I do watching it. Somehow along the way, something changed for me. And such. So I found more enjoyment, in doing that. So it's very hard for me to watch, when I want to be doing, But so that's how I got involved with it. We could talk more about CHIKARA if you have other questions about things. I mean, my time there, it was some of the craziest times of my life. I could write a whole bunch of stories. I got to be around some really amazing people. I think professional wrestling tends to, by nature, I guess, draw some really unique and talented and amazing people. And I had the pleasure and really privilege of being around a lot of those people. And it was just amazing to me. I learned a lot. I talk a lot and I joke around a lot, but I listen and I pay attention more. And I think that kind of surprised a few people, but I watched people too. So I would always watch Quack to see what he was doing. And I would always try to reverse engineer it. Okay, why is he doing this? And what does this do? And what will this happen? And what will do this? So I was always trying to reverse engineering anything Quack was doing. Because I was always in awe of him, actually. I honestly wanted to be like him, to be really honest. He's really a master storyteller. And, I just love that. And I think, really amazing person. And I just kind of wanted to be like him. And, and I believe and I agree with a lot of his philosophies about professional wrestling. And I really agree with him. And I believe in those things myself. So like I said, I was always watching Quack in particular. I would watch a lot of just different people. People I was around. And like I said, I learned so much. I got to drive with a lot of the guys, which was awesome. So it was great. And there are just certain people I absolutely adored. Simbodi Kanzarni, absolutely adored. He's a very interesting person. And he's very, very, very cool. He's one of these people who always asks, and what I learned from him is the importance of asking questions. Yeah. He always asks a lot of questions. And he's very interested in people. And it was the coolest thing. And I learned a lot from him. He has a lot to share. He's a very cool person. He's one of my favorite people. Archibald Peck was another favorite person of mine. I had brief interactions with him, but I always learned so much because he's completely brilliant. He was completely brilliant when he was with us. Completely brilliant. I did get to ride in a car with Delirious once. That was amazing. That was absolutely amazing. Delirious is absolutely incredible person. So that was really cool. So I like I said, I got to be around these people who are just amazing minds for wrestling and got to sit and talk to them and ask questions occasionally and get things answered. And so it was an amazing experience. I liked doing that. I went to Canada for the first time. That was an experience. That was pretty cool, actually. There were a lot of fun little moments from that weekend. So the traveling was actually one of my favorite things. I actually liked doing the traveling. I never liked car rides before car, but I actually really liked doing that, like doing the driving. I got to do a lot of different creative things, writing wise, which was amazing, which was great. I really liked the production aspect, learning about the production aspect of wrestling, and the event planning. I really liked that. So that was really cool because I was really involved in that. And I really liked that kind of thing. And it was really interesting to watch training sessions. And learn that way and learn about the whys and the technical parts of wrestling, about why things are done and the thought and the logic that goes behind it. Really interesting stuff. So like I said, my time in CHIKARA was absolutely amazing. I got pushed to the limits of what I could do. I did so much more than I thought I was even capable of doing. I learned lots about myself. The good parts and the really bad parts, which I think is really important. I think that you need to know both of those, understand what your strengths are and your weaknesses are. I know what it's like to fail. I know what it's like to succeed. And I felt like I actually lived a life, I wasn't just, wishing it would happen. I was doing it. You know what I mean? And it's scary. It's a really scary thing. But it was completely worth it. And I don't regret it at all. And I would do it again, despite everything that's happened and whatnot. Cause it was I went through, especially near the end, I was doing through a very difficult time. I mean, my wrist, I did more than just break it. Cause originally when I hurt it, was in an incident doing ring crew. I tripped and fell. It was stupid, but, I should look behind me. Yeah, so basically what happened was I was in the truck, and I was carrying the side beams for the ring, which are heavy, but I could lift them. And in Chikara's ring, there's actually a middle part that stabilizes it, that comes out. And we'd already put some of them in the truck, and I thought I had more room behind me. I didn't. It was dark, and I thought I had more room, and I didn't, so I tripped. And so actually the side beam of the ring fell on my wrist and crushed it. I also fell on my legs too, and I was really bruised up. Thankfully, I did not break my legs or anything. I shouldn't laugh because it was actually horrible. It was very, very painful, and I knew something was wrong. I think the first thing I said was, "I think I broke my wrist." And what I had
working in the business, man.
I know. Well, again, it was my own stupid fault. I should have looked backwards. It was definitely my own stupidity there. But what happened was I ended up breaking it, shattering the joint, and then I actually tore the cartilage all at once. So that was really, really rough. And actually I didn't even know about all those injuries at the time. The cartilage was something we found when I went into surgery, because I did surgery on it. And actually when I originally did it, they only knew about the break. And then later on, I had a really terrible orthopedic. Went to another orthopedic a few months later, and I found out that I had in fact crushed, had shattered it. And then the joint. So I actually, my wrist joint is kind of not really there. And then when they did surgery, that's when they found the cartilage tear. They had to clear that all out. And so a lot of people saw me with my sling or my arm cast or whatever. From that. But, so that was rough though, because it was really, really painful, especially dealing with injuries that I didn't know I had. So I was trying to do rehab on it, and it was incredibly painful, and it wasn't getting better. So, I wouldn't say I was abusing painkillers, but I was using them more than I was comfortable with, let's put it that way, to get through things. And I was taking a lot more stuff, and I was having problems with my job and such, and, just a lot of stresses money wise and things like that. So I started to kind of spiral a little bit. And become very overwhelmed. So I was definitely not myself at all during that period. And it was very difficult. So so I kind of spiraled. And at one point I felt like the world was bottoming out on me. And it was just a really rough time. I couldn't begin to tell you how desperate and how terrible I felt with all these things on me. I'm really good at hiding stuff generally, from people. So a lot of people did not know. Matter of fact, there's only one person that I remember asking me if I was okay, and I knew he knew I wasn't all right. Like there was things going on, I was not okay. Only one person who did that. Anyway, so that was really hard. And then being let go from Chikara, I was actually let go, was just like completely heartbreaking, and kind of added to that. So I was not in a very good place for a long time. So I kind of, but I muddled through. I think that was it. And I don't think I was the best person. I really got to see some of like the darker sides of myself. But like I said, I mean, you kind of have to come to accept that and be able to say, okay, well, this is not who I was. This person, I was not proud of that. I didn't like being that person. This is who I want to be.
Yeah.
And I think that only when you really go through something like that and you really see the darker side of yourself, and go through those kind of things that you really can understand that. And then really understand, how to kind of bridge the gap between your ideal person, who you want to be, and where you're at and who you are and what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. It was actually as heartbreaking as it was, and difficult. And even at times, like, it gets me a little bit. It was probably maybe the best thing that ever happened to me because of what it taught me. There were so many lessons in it, and I could probably write a book about all the lessons I learned from that experience. But I learned that, I'd always thought I would always be in Chikara. So, to lose that and not be in Chikara, and Chikara was part of my identity. To lose that, I really had to stop and think, who am I? What do I really love? What matters to me? Where do I want to go from here? And what's next? And I did think about leaving wrestling, actually, for a time. I really did. I mean, I continued to go to shows. I continued to muddle through, but I really did think about leaving wrestling. And then I decided that I really did love doing it too much, and that I really did take such joy in being a part of it. And I felt that there was more I could give, in terms of wrestling. And I knew that I could do things and I could be useful to companies that need my skills. So I just continued doing it. And I'm really glad I muddled through and didn't give up. And now that I've kind of come out of the other side, I mean, I had my surgery. I've healed up, you know, to the point where the doctor was actually really impressed because at one point they talked about fusing it because it was so bad. And eventually I might need that down the line, but for right now I don't need that. But to get out of that, and then finally once I healed from that, you know, you know, the doctor even said that it's so good that there's a good chance I can go back to training. I wanted to be a referee, so it's still a goal of mine. So I'm hoping beginning of next year I'll be able to do that. You know, and I'm going to be testing it out. I'm going to be taking Aikido classes and testing it out. And then my job situation finally turned around, and I finally got hired at the job that I'd been waiting for. And so, you know, got me really great insurance and really great benefits, and do really great there. So that turned around. So a lot of the stressors that I had that were going on had actually turned around. And like I said, I mean, you know, sometimes it feels really hopeless and you want to give up. And I tell no one, I don't want to sound like John Cena because I feel like I am a little bit, but don't give up because it can change. If it can go bad, it can get better, and it will get better. You just have to kind of hang on. And I'm really glad I did, because now things are looking up and they are changing for the better. And I'm in a much better place, you know, and a much better, I think, person. And I think I'm able to be more empathetic and sympathetic to people who are going through things. I'm able to give better counsel. I'm be able to be a better friend. I'm able to help people. And like I said, I have a really great sort of, outlook on, things like that. So it was, again, like it was a horrible experience, but I'm kind of glad it happened, just because of what I've learned about myself and being in a better place now, and really, you know, getting back on track. So, which is really great. So like I said, nobody should ever give up, because that's just me. I wanted to. I meant that really seriously. That's how bad it was. But like I said, I'm glad I didn't. So
yeah, I'm glad you didn't give up either, to be honest. Because I do remember, like, it was a weird transition, like for those of us that were hanging out on the 101 forums and stuff, because like 1 minute you were there and the next minute you weren't. Like,
yeah, it was just
disappeared. You disappeared, like, from the internet, as it were. Kind of went off the radar a little bit. But I do, to kind of wrap things up a little bit, I do kind of want to talk a little bit about what you're doing now.
Absolutely.
Because I've seen, since you came back on the radar, as it were, you've been involved with quite a few things in wrestling, including Excellence Pro. And so I kind of want to take the last little bit of this time to kind of go over what you're doing now in wrestling, both Excellence Pro and etc. Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. And I want to say, if I scared anybody by disappearing, and I'm so sorry. It really was something I needed to do. So I'm really sorry if I did. You know, I really apologize for that. I'm definitely not my intention was to hurt anybody or anything like that. But and I think too it was necessary for me to make a break. So basically, what I'm doing now is, I am at Excellence Pro. I am, the, executive assistant to the administrator of Excellence, Edgar Excellence. So basically taking transcription for blogs, and assisting him, in any way that I can. And I'll be expanding that too, by the way.
Yeah, just so people understand, Edgar Excellence is
the head cat of Excellence.
Thank you.
Literally.
So I was sorry to interrupt, but I was just thinking about that. It's like, I don't know too many people in wrestling that work with cats. So I feel like I have to ask the obvious question here.
Okay.
Do you think we will see Teddy Hart in Excellence Pro, or has he been in talks?
I don't know if he's in talks. I have not heard that he's in talks. I'm not sure. Maybe if he brings his cat, maybe we can work that in. He may have been, you know, Edgar may be in contact with Teddy Hart's cat. There may be discussions between the two of them, that we're not aware of. I would not be surprised. Teddy Hart is, for all his faults, an excellent professional wrestler. He's very, very talented. But maybe between the two cats, there may have been some discussion there.
Shady dealings and catnip.
There might be some catnip involved, yes. There may have been some catnip.
I'm sorry. So go ahead. So you do blogs and whatnot.
I transcribe the blogs for Edgar. And I'll be doing more and more. Right now I run the merch, because I also act as bookkeeper. And so, I do many things as an executive assistant, of course. You kind of have to be a jack of all trades in that kind of job. And you'll probably be seeing more of me as my role expands and as I take on more duties, as per my job description. So you'll definitely be seeing more of me. But I'll be there every month. And I will be there at our next show, which is coming up on March 12th. It's called Kittens Mittens. And it's going to be our 2016 debut show. Our January show, Let the Cat Out of the Bag, was unfortunately canceled. We had to tap out to the snowstorm. And then we did have a match, and Ken Broadway was in the Alliance Cup at National Pro Wrestling Day, but it wasn't like an official excellence show. Despite how wonderful that was, and it was a great experience. And it was really wonderful, and I'm really glad that we all got to be involved in that. And I know Edgar was very, very thankful that we got to be involved in that. National Pro Wrestling Day is a great event. I really love the charity aspect of it. And I know they raised more than their goal, which was awesome. And again, the excellence match was amazing, and it went over really well. So we were really proud of everyone who was in that match. And Ken Broadway did quite well for himself in the Young Lions Cup. So it was really great. So we'll be glad though to be back at our home, which is the Forest Lodge in Sellersville, Pennsylvania. It'll be, again, Saturday night. Right now our main event is going to be one night only, which is Mark Quinn and Anthony Gangone against the Batiri. This is kind of a rematch from our last show of 2015, which was 20% gratuity. They had an amazing 20+ minute match. Maybe the best match of the year for both those teams. So we're very much looking forward to the rematch. So we're looking forward to seeing if the Batiri can, maybe they'll be the ones to stop the undefeated and unstoppable one night only. So we're looking forward to that. And also in another tag team match, Smiley, the friendly neighborhood psychopath, will be taking on Nick the Silent Assassin, who will be with his manager, Ariel Nix. And they're going to be taking on the duo of Danger Jameson and Rembrandt Lewis. And lately, Danger and Rembrandt have been looking to Icarus as sort of a mentor for advice. So I don't know if anything they've learned from Icarus will help them in this match against Smiley and Nick, who have actually, they're not regular tag team partners, but they have teamed up before in the past, once or twice. So we'll see. And I know there's going to be more in store. I'm working on a top secret project. And also I know that Dan Champion will be there. Orange Cassidy will be back. It's been a little bit while since he's visited us. I'm sure Grant Akuma will be there. I'm sure Icarus and Hallowicked and Blind Rage will be there. So Havoc, absolutely going to be a really stacked card when it's all finally revealed. And I'm sure Edgar's got more surprises for all of us in store. So we're literally looking forward to returning coming up in March.
That's awesome. That sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun.
It is. They're always fun shows. So, we'll see. And I know Argus and the Boar will also be there too. So can't forget those guys. I think the Boar might beat me up if I forget him. I don't want to do that. And we are going to have ladies action too. So I know, Karen Q was supposed to make her debut, in January. She's going to be making that in March. Also Vanity will be back. Vanity you may have seen. She was, hanging out with the new and improved Chuck Taylor. You gotta love him. I do love the new and improved Chuck Taylor. Very, very high on that. And then also too, Gianno Perazzo, who has been seen on NXT, is making a lot of appearances on NXT. She will also be back. She's our Lady Excellence, and she will be back in action. So it's gonna be a great card. This is all said and done. So we're very much looking forward to that. So we have that going on. And also, too, I know that there is a blog. I got sent a transcription, some blog to transcribe for Edgar, so that'll be appearing soon, sometime this week. And you can get more information and see the blogs and get more information on Excellence at www.excellenceprofessionalwrestling.com. So that's more on Excellence. I've also been helping out, going kind of, Excellence is in Pennsylvania, but going up North Jersey. I have been doing some things up in North Jersey. My friends Dan and Heather, they own a store in Englishtown at the market there called Funkenstein Wrestling Superstore. And they've just expanded, and it's really beautiful. It's really, really great. They have a website, and I actually write wrestling bios for them, which has been very cool because I've gotten to learn and read more about wrestlers that I wasn't maybe so familiar with. And that's been really a wonderful thing. So I've been helping them out, and actually, they're going to be at the big event. It's the 10th one, I think, in Queens. And the big event is eventually like a big wrestling convention. and there's tons of wrestlers there signing things, and different things going on. And I actually went to like the third one. John Morrison was there, and it was really kind of surreal. It was weird. I remember because I really wanted John Morrison at one point to go to CHIKARA, and so I was really pushing for this. And I remember trying to convince him to come to CHIKARA, and then Marty Jannetty was there. And so I actually had like gotten Marty Jannetty to help us try to convince John Morrison to go to CHIKARA. And I do remember that there was a thing on Twitter. I'm like, I was telling Morrison, I'm like, you need to talk to this guy, Mike Quackenbush. You need to talk to him. And sadly, John Morrison never made it to CHIKARA, despite my best efforts, and Marty Jannetty's best efforts did not make it. But he did make it to Lucha Underground, so he did
made
make
it to the big brother,
to the temple. Made it to the temple.
The bigger, more mature brother of CHIKARA, as some have called it.
I've
heard like a couple of people call it that. So, yeah.
Oh, really? That's interesting. I guess in some respects it is. But so the big event's gonna be a great event, and my friends are gonna have a table along with Damage 365 Radio. They're partnering together, and they're gonna have a bunch of stars there. They're gonna have Amber O'Neill's gonna be there. It's gonna be really cool. And they're gonna have Cowboy Bob Orton. So that's gonna be really exciting. And they'll have a few other guests.
And the cast, I imagine.
And the cast, and there will be cowboy hats involved. I'm absolutely sure. But it'll be a lot of fun. So I'm going to be there helping them out. So I'm looking forward to that. And then that night, another company I've been really, really thrilled to start helping out with, and they're allowing me to help out, so to me it's very flattering, is UWA Elite, which runs in South River, New Jersey, so northern Jersey. They're going to have their show, which is called Dangerous Uprisings. So there'll be their March show. Cowboy Bob will be there as well. They're going to have there's going to be some title matches. There's going to be handicap matches. They have a great card. So I definitely think people should definitely check that out. So the UWA Elite show is going to be on March 5th. That's going to be the same day as the big event. So we'll be there at the big event, and then we'll be in South River that night. So that'll be really amazing. UWA has been around, Elite has been around for about 15 years now. And they have a really great roster as well. One person I like in particular, I like Arcadia a lot. He's a really great wrestler. And so he's somebody I really like to watch, but really tremendous. And what's really cool is they have a trios title, which I think is so cool. I really like that. And that's a really neat thing. I kind of wish, we could see that in some more places. I like the idea of a trios title. But they're doing really great things. They've been around for about 15 years. So they have a really cool, like, kind of established, like roster and history. It's really amazing. So like I said, I'm really honored to be even helping out with that. It's really great. So that show's going to be really great too. It's going to be a lot of fun. So if anyone's in North Jersey, definitely come to that and check it out. The crowd's good. They're really great and fun, and really, their crowds are very excited. They're really into it. I can see a lot of similarities between like the Excellence fans, the CHIKARA fans, and the UWA Elite fans in terms of their enthusiasm and excitement, and it's really great to see. So, and you can get more information on UWA Elite at www.uwaelite.webs.com. That's their website. So I definitely recommend you checking that out if you get a chance to. And coming to the big event in Queens, like I said, the one that I went to as a fan was a lot of fun, so I'm expecting there's going to be a lot of fun too. That, and definitely come and see us at Excellence in Sellersville. That's going to be amazing. So I'm looking forward to seeing everybody at these shows, and and being around, and hopefully doing more things in wrestling. I'm starting hopefully to start writing more about wrestling. It's something that has always been, my writing has always been something really important to me that I really enjoy doing. And I have been writing some things. I started a new sort of monthly feature, sort of column, I guess, called Meditations on Wrestling. And it's like part autobiography, part biography, part discussion on wrestling, just part sort of a little bit of history too, where I talk about a various sort of keyword or things from my life and how they relate to wrestling. And the very first one was comfort. And I talked about how losing job, how wrestling kind of, even as a kid, when I was going through things, kind of gives me the same comfort like today when I'm going through things. Mm-hmm. And I used WrestleMania 9 as an example. Yeah. I like WrestleMania 9. Doink the Clown going underneath the ring is still something that just absolutely fascinates me. I've been under the ring many times and it still fascinates me. Just being underneath the ring. I don't know why. So I talked about that. And then I talked about disappointment, which I related to the King of the Ring 1995. And if you saw it or you were there, you know exactly what I was talking about. And I talk about expectations and how I remember going into that being very excited, thinking Shawn Michaels was going to win, and he didn't make it out first round, and how disappointing that was, and how I feel like that was the beginning and the end for that pay-per-view. It just got like worse and worse and worse. You're like, oh no, just not feeling this. Not into this anymore. And I talk about like my failed marriage, because I was married, and my divorce and how that worked out. So I have not decided what I'm going to write next. But maybe something love themed. Maybe I should do a sequel to Wrestling Love and Chikara. I think that'd be very interesting to write. Kind of talking about now from the other side, seeing how that'd be different, kind of maybe revisiting that. I haven't decided. So I don't know if I'm going to write about love, heartbreak, I don't know what yet, but for this month, I haven't quite decided. But, but I think I'll probably write about new love, maybe. Because there are some things that I have discovered through doing various things that I really enjoy. I'm really kind of interested, and I've really been watching FMW, Frontier Martial Arts Wrestling from Japan. Yes, it is the deathmatch. It is the deathmatch wrestling company. I know everyone's like, yeah, but they did a lot of Atsushi Onita, who ran it, and I believe still runs it because he runs the 2015 version that they just came back last year. Really inventive stuff. And his passion and knowing his fans and giving his fans what they want. And really the innovation was really amazing. FMW. And then when they stopped or maybe had less of a focus on the death matches, they had guys like Hayabusa, who was just amazing. Absolutely just simply amazing. Masato Tanaka, Mike Awesome was a big part of it. And they had really great matches. And people were just doing amazing things and still really inventive, and really interesting. And they had all kinds of factions and all kinds of warfare. And it was very interesting. When you read the history, it's like you're reading going, oh my God, this is amazing. So I've kind of gotten into watching it. And the women that were there were tremendous. I mean, Megumi Kudo is like amazing. She would do like these like hardcore, just like the guys would, deathmatch type stuff, but she could wrestle really well. And it was just a really incredible women's wrestling. So I've kind of gotten into watching that a little bit and kind of been like, wow, kind of like opening my eyes up to something different and new, kind of a new inspiration. So, I'm kind of really enjoying that. But, so I'm going to hopefully be writing more. I don't know how much like feature pieces like I was doing about Chikara and stuff I'll be writing. I don't have anything in mind right now for that. Because I do have other projects that I'm working on in terms of writing and things. Like I want to start getting some of my writings I wrote about. I've written about chronic illness before because I have some stomach illnesses, so I've written about that. So I hope to get some of those writings on the website, and also to my plus size pretty project. I hope to work on that and get more of that out there. You've got maybe some of you guys follow me on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. You've seen some of those posts, but I want to write more about that. And what that's about and why I'm doing that and why that matters and why it's important and things like that. So I'm hoping to expand that as well. So I'm doing a lot of different creative things, which is really, really exciting. So
yeah, that's awesome. So we'll go ahead and put a little ribbon on this president of the conversation. Where can people find you online? Like, where can they follow you on social media? Where can they find your writing?
Okay. I'm still on social media. I am on, we're talking about, Instagram. I'm on Instagram. I am PS Pretty, which, is plus size pretty. So you can find me there. And then I'm on Twitter. I was Babs Chikara, but I am now, Babs Indie. And you can find me under Babs Indie on Facebook as well. So there's some faces you can find me. Now my writings, I've been really working on getting some of those up. And I'll do blog about general kind of things that come to my mind through my own life, kind of lighter blogs, as well. But you can find all of those, including my Chikara and my wrestling stuff. That's all there on, www.writingfemme, and femme is spelled FEMME.com. So all of my writings are there for people to check out. So, the meditations on wrestling are there, everything. So, that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Thanks again for coming on and chatting with me. This has been a lot of fun.
No, thank you. This is a lot of fun. It was very nice to be on the other side, though a little different. And hopefully, I wasn't too boring and I didn't ramble on too much. And I said some things that people found were interesting or kind of maybe put questions about. And I do want to thank you, Alex, for not only having me on here, but also to taking up the mantle of, CHIKARA in 15 and Chattin With The CHIKARMY. I think they're really important things. I think the new energy and kind of creativity you're putting into them and the effort and the work is really amazing, and it's really appreciated and has not gone unnoticed. And so I do appreciate it very much. So thank you. Thank you for that.
Thanks again to Babs for chatting with me this week. Be sure to check out her writing at writingfem.com and check out Excellence Pro and UWA Elite. That's it for this first edition of the Occupy Pro Wrestling Podcast. Thanks to everyone that supported the website over the last few years, and thank you for listening. I'm hoping to have this up on iTunes and Stitcher very soon, so when that time comes, be sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes and Stitcher and leave a rating and review while you're at it. Every little bit of feedback helps. Big thanks also to the Mystery Men for letting me use some of their tunes for the opening and closing of this show. Until next time, 10 presenters, this is Alex Smiley reminding you to let wrestling put a smile on your face.